Welcome back to Fridgestuck, where we discuss the allusions and references in Homestuck. Today we're going to be discussing Roxy Lalonde, as she's depicted in the webcomic, as well as her iteration in Hive Swap. Post-canon's still being written after all, so let's jump in. Roxy's name was chosen by Homestuck's creator, Andrew Hussie. The only human kid with a two-syllable first name, Roxy is the shortened form of the name Roxanne. Sorry, I couldn't resist. The name Roxy derives from the Greek and Persian words for dawn, sun, or day. I guess the Striders are not the sole owners of irony here, considering that Roxy controls the shadowy void aspect, and her denizen Nyx is named after the Greek primordial deity of the night. This contrasting detail also connects her with her ecto-bio daughter, the ever grimdark Roxy Lalonde. Speaking of which, the surname Lalonde derives from my bitter enemy, the French language. Taken from Old Norman French, Londe means grove or wood, fitting that Rose and Roxy are literally de la Londe, or of the woods, as their home is located in Adirondack State Park in New York State. Or, formerly, in Roxy's case. The light in the forest, huh? Funny coincidence, but I don't think there's any connection to the book or movie. I think. Roxy's Chumhandle is tipsy nostalgic. The tipsy refers to her constant inebriated state during her pre-entry days. The second half is most likely the drunken misspelling of nostalgic, the yearning to return to a past period or unrecoverable condition. This hints at Roxy's despair at the state of Alpha Earth in the 25th century, wishing to be in a better place and meet her friends, especially Rose. However, if there is no error, and she intentionally spelled nostalgic with a G, Roxy's Pester Chum suffix might reference Gnosticism, similarly to Jade Harley's. This could count towards Roxy being a fount of hidden knowledge for the present-bound Alpha kids, since Roxy was known for constantly tipping off Jane Crocker about the diabolical nature of Betty Crocker, aka the Condescension. Roxy's Strife specify are rifle kind and fist kind. The latter has been shown to be popular with not only human guardians, but also with other void players. This can be seen as a player weaponizing nothing but their own two hands. Funnily, Roxy's Strife deck holds several possible Easter eggs to classic video games. As shown in Soundpage Collide, when fighting the Condis, Roxy pulls off a frame-by-frame hurricane kick and shoryuken from Street Fighter. In addition, her Purifier rifle not only references the sniper rifle from the Fallout franchise, it also functions in a way similar to the Portal gun from, well, Portal, especially when it comes to causing humans to momentum jump. And now it's time to explore the alternate universe. Beta Roxy Lalonde fell to Earth on a meteor with Muty roughly 30 years before Spurb fully kicked off. Due to unspecified off-screen events, she becomes acquainted at an early age with billionaire explorer Jake Harley. This was probably due to Jake researching the mysterious meteors that also brought him and his sister, Jane Egbert, to Earth. He might have even found and raised Roxy for all we know. Teen Roxy grew up in Haunt Switch, where she became the loyal guardian to Jake's children after his wife, A. Claire, passed away and Jake left to roam the world. From what we infer from flavor text in Hive Swap Act 1, two things young adult Roxy couldn't do well was cook and keep away from alcohol. Joey Clare mentions that Roxy would often sneak down into the Half Harley Manor's basement to drink away from impressionable children. but her wards would still sometimes come home to a drunk babysitter. Joey described her as a terrible role model, but tried her best. Roxy also took up research at the nearby Skyanet lab, proving to be very adept at SPURB technology, most likely with a purifier and ectobiology tech. She might have been busy, but she did care for the Half-Harley kids, as she was out getting groceries as the events of Hive Swap and Haunt Switch occurred. While we currently don't know the full story of what happened that fateful night of 11/11/1994, it evidently caused enough of a stir for Roxy to pick up roots and move to the middle of nowhere with a lab significantly closer to home when Rose arrived to Earth a year later. Roxy's parenting became much more dynamic when it came to Rose. Not only did she obsessively see to the house more than the manor, she also was determined to shower Rose with gifts and praised her daughter's efforts and interests with love and support, especially when their interests intersected. Look at all those wizards! Rose, typical teen, interpreted her mother's actions as deceitful, especially when it came to the funeral for Jaspers, something that Roxy no doubt put genuine effort in. Unfortunately, Roxy's alcoholism took a turn for the worse, not even attempting to hide her liquor or habitual drinking, much to her daughter's chagrin. Roxy was prepared for 413 long before the game was released, having knowledge of where the meteors would strike and deploying an escape hatch in Jasper's mausoleum for Rose to use when the fire broke out at the house. When in the medium, Roxy took down many underlings single-handedly on her way to the Vale's ectobiology laboratory. Eventually, she meets Dad Egbert, who she grows romantic feelings for. After reuniting briefly with Jake Harley, Roxy and Dad travel to Skya alone. They later get distracted by an impromptu date, which Jack Noir decides to crash. And thus was the end of Mom Lalonde. A pretty interesting story, considering Hussey mentioned that Mom Lalonde's original personality was cobbled together from bits of various mother archetypes. It's revealed early in Act 6 that Alpha Roxy had a little crush on Dad Crocker, referencing back to her beta version's romance with Dad Egbert. Typical of a rogue, Roxy was the one who accidentally stole Jaspers from Rose, and eventually killed him. After she purifies Colonel Sassacre's daunting text, it unintentionally crushes Jaspers, something foreshadowed by John thousands of pages earlier. Feeling guilty about stealing the cat from her mom, she sends him back to the beta timeline, to be found by Rose and Mom Lalonde just a few weeks after he initially vanished. Roxy's motive for playing SPURB was for the chance to save who she thinks of as her mom, Alpha Rose, someone who she spent a lot of time idolizing and modeling herself after. Of course, she wasn't given a full picture of who her mom was as a person. Just a series of verbose wizard fiction, a few tales of her amazing renegade antics, and a load of alcohol. The booze originally frustrated Roxy, considering that Rose didn't seem the type to drink. But this definitely was much more for Roxy than for Rose. Similar to another seer, Alpha Rose was able to envision past and future events, and saw Roxy drinking. Therefore, paradoxically, she enabled the drunken teen in the post-Scratch universe. The fenestrated planes in Roxy's home are a self-referential callback to the windows of Problem Sleuth. Not only does she use them instead of windows, Roxy occasionally breaks and jumps through them for travel. The human-built planes in particular need to be plugged in to work, and if you're trapped between two powered-off planes, then the environment starts to change, just like the ones belonging to Problem Sleuth and company. In Roxy's case, her space in the furthest ring turns into a dream bubble. Hussey revealed that Roxy's favorite video games are cult classics, Earthbound and Pikmin. Earthbound makes sense, considering Homestuck itself was inspired by it. But it's Pikmin that really stands out to me. In Pikmin, you play as Captain Olimar, whose spaceship crash-landed on what is inferred to be post-apocalyptic Earth. While using a whistle, Olimar is able to command the numerous indigenous creatures called Pikmin to help repair his ship, while also helping them increase their numbers. Of course, this harks back to Roxy's own experience of being the lone human among a horde of Carapacians on the ruins of civilization. But this could also be foreshadowing to Roxy's eventual role as commanding friend leader of the Alpha Kids. One thing that traveled between sessions was Roxy's amazing hacker skills. This could maybe be a connection to her aspect, considering that C++ has the Void command. This might also explain why Homestuck's Void players are particularly accomplished with technology. Let's try to expound on these subjects past their entries in previous videos, shall we? Roxy Lalonde is the Rogue of Void. Rogues in Homestuck are blatantly said to work as the passive version of the Thief class, stealing their aspect or stealing from their aspect to assist others instead of themselves. Connected to this, Roxy has stolen several items out of thin air using her Purifier tech. Most infamously, pumpkins. What pumpkin? Every pumpkin. However, keeping with the Robin Hood-esque analogy, she gave away the pumpkins she stole to her Carapacian neighbors for them to eat, robbing the pumpkin rich to feed the poor. Not to mention, she literally plucked the troll's Maître orb from non-existence, ultimately saving the troll race post-game. You're welcome. Being a lined rogue is not all sunbows and rainlight, however. While roguish good looks and personality are seen as charming, the literal definition of rogue means you're unorthodox and unpredictable, and that's bound to get you in trouble with even your closest friends. Not only that, but being a rogue can also mean that you're a loner, a stray, solitary. Sure, you can live your life free from the restraints of society and group dynamics, but that does make others see you as dangerous, and that might make it hard to find lasting romance. Keep in mind the other characters that share her class. Rufio, whose journey is marred by infidelity, awkward relationships, and being hit on by most of his teammates, and Nepeta, the wild girl living in a cave who was in unreciprocated love with one troll her entire life. Personality-wise, Roxy and Nepeta seem to have a lot in common when it comes to a love of cats, role-playing, being chipper, and being good pals with a strong horse-obsessed friend. Given her void aspect, lunar sway, and her birthday of December 4th, Roxy is a true Sagittarius in the extended troll zodiac, like Indigo's Equius and Horus Zahak. The title for the true Sagittarius is the Engineer, and both the trolls and Roxy have major knowledge of machines. But even with that, the Zahaks seem to have more in common with Dirk Strider than they do Roxy. This might be because Roxy's personality leans closer to the more positive stereotypes of the Zodiac's definition of void players, while Equius and Horus unfortunately embrace the negative ones. However, not all engineers are construed to just robotics and computers. To engineer as a verb can also mean to modify an organism by manipulating its genetic material. And the last Fridgestuck fact for Roxy Lalonde is... Speaking of which, the XY in her name might yet be another reference to genetics. This makes sense considering she might be more responsible for the creation of the Ecto children than John is. In the Paradox Space comic titled Birds and Bees, Beta Roxy is shown to have been the one responsible for programming the coordinates in the ectobiology lab before John arrived. This ultimately would make both John and Roxy the parties responsible for the lives of their friends, living up to the mom in Mom Lalonde right there. Of course, we'd need confirmation on the canonicity of the comic to begin with. As it is, the comics of Paradox Space exist in a limbo of canon and non-canon. as Andrew Hussey answered the following question around launch of 2014. Question: are the comics canon? Answer: I think you'll have to use your own judgment on that. Sometimes there's going to be some truly ridiculous nonsense that could not have possibly happened in canon. Other times, the events portrayed will at least be plausible, and will present no contradiction. Does that then mean that those events are canon? Hard to say. A formal ruling here does not seem appropriate. If you want me to give you some guidelines that are as clear as possible, here you go. For any given story, it is either definitely not canon or possibly canon, but no story should ever be regarded as definitely canon unless Homestuck itself confirms those events retroactively in some manner. Does that make sense? So, does this mean that all of the additional series outside of the original webcomic are considered non-canon unless Homestuck itself confirms it? Is Homestuck the Bible in the sense that we have to test all Gnostic books on how loyal it is to the canon source? Makes me wonder if I can put that logic towards the interpretation of the epilogues in Homestuck too. Thank you guys so much for watching this Fridgestuck episode for Roxy Lalonde. I hope you enjoyed. Is there a fact I missed? Is there a character or concept that you'd like to see? Leave it down in the comments below and it might end up on the show someday. Be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend, and check out my Patreon, and I will see you all next time. Bye!
2 shots of vodka, then 1.
Oh, thank goodness that's over. Now, I'm sure there's like one last kid. But who is it? Who am I thinking of? It's on the tip of my tongue. I mean, can't be anybody too important. I mean, you always save the best for last, right? Oh no.
Hey there. Consider becoming a patron, just like the phenomenal Bleed Red, Alexander Madeline, Uranium Coffee, and Ryan Nelson.